Kremlin's nuclear secrets just leaked online, and now you got to know them too. Putin says he's ready for peace talks right after another round of missile strikes on Ukraine cities. Russian troops are pushing towards Sumy. Ukraine holds the line. And a deep dive into one of Putin's darkest secrets, the Kremlin's ties to international drug trafficking. All that and more tonight on Ukraine Today. Hi, we are from Ukraine. My name is Viktor Kaltai, and this is the show where we break down Putin's war one lie at a time. Hit the like button, subscribe, and let's go. Russia's at it again, trying to sneak across Ukraine's northern border in small groups. In Sumy region, fighting is intense as the enemy attempts to seize villages near the border. But local authorities say the situation is tough, yet under control. Meanwhile, in Washington, a familiar chorus, let's sit down and talk. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Ukraine and Russia are expected to meet next week in Istanbul. At least the table's set.
Well, it is my understanding and it is our hope that Russia and Ukraine will engage in direct talks and negotiations next week in Istanbul, and we believe that meeting is going to take place, and that is a meeting the president encouraged and urged for these two sides to come together and negotiate directly. And the president has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield, and he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this.
Is the United States going to participate in those conversations?
We will let you know if the president plans to send a representative. I'm not tracking that at this time.
President Zelensky wasn't having it. He called out Russia's so-called peace memorandum, which surprised no one has actually seen. Not Ukraine, not West, not even Turkey, which is hosting the talks.
Russia is dragging out this war and doing everything it can to fool the countries that are still trying to talk to Moscow, instead of putting pressure on it. But words don't work with Moscow. Even that so-called memorandum they promised and supposedly spent over a week preparing, no one has seen it. Not us, not our partners, not even Turkey, which hosted the first meeting. And yet, they promised it would be shared. In fact, they promised it first and foremost to the United States, to President Trump. Just another Russian lie.
Istanbul talks, if they happen, are expected to include secretary advisors from the US, UK, France and Germany. General Keith Keller confirmed this, noting that these experts helped develop Ukraine's 22-point peace plan during earlier meetings in London and Paris. But there is still no Russian version of the plan. They keep promising, they just don't deliver. Classic. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, aka Putin's mustache, say the dictator is ready for high-level talks, but only after the working groups finish their work. Translation: not anytime soon. Let's talk about the real Kremlin language – crime. Our team dug into one of Putin's business ventures, the narcotics trade. Yes, the president of Russia allegedly has connections to international drug trafficking networks under FSB cover.
In the 90s, St. Petersburg was not only the cultural capital, but also the main transit hub of the new era, a time of criminal capital, shadowy schemes, and disappearing cargo. It was there that Vladimir Putin began his path to power as the head of the Committee for External Economic Relations.
Of course, what worries me most are drugs. This is an obvious thing. It's a path to the degradation of the nation.
One of the most high-profile episodes of that era was in February 1993. The Torfyanovka border checkpoint on the border with Finland. Russian customs officers stop a container from Colombia. Inside, cans of stew. In reality, a ton of cocaine. The largest shipment ever seized in Russia.
In theory, an Interpol operation should have been carried out, track everyone involved in receiving the shipment, detain people along the chain, gather evidence, and uncover the scheme. But that didn't happen, because the container ended up in the hands of the St. Petersburg security services. It was opened publicly in front of cameras. In the video, a man in camouflage tastes the powder and says, "bitter." His tongue goes numb. It was a staged recording.
It's at this very moment that something strange happens. Instead of using the shipment for an international investigation, the cocaine disappears. The official version is, it will be processed for medical use. The unofficial version is, the shipment went through other channels.
First, the container was addressed to the city hall and to the city's sanitary service. These organizations were subordinate to the administration where Putin worked. Second, the company they traced, Eurodonut, was registered with the participation of the very committee that Putin headed.
During those same years, an organization called SPEC operated under the city hall. It included businessmen, officials, and, according to journalistic investigations, major criminal bosses. Putin was an unpaid advisor, a convenient figure, but at the same time, a key one.
And it was there on the board of directors of the gangster SPAC that Vladimir Putin himself served in person. Putin established criminal control over the seaport of St. Petersburg. Cocaine trafficking into the city was actively conducted through it.
Company registrations go through it, export-import flows are processed through it, and most importantly, it is through this that control over the seaport is consolidated, a strategic point on the map of drug trafficking into Europe.
Spacey laundered money for the Colombian Ochoa clan, one of the largest suppliers of cocaine to Europe. What makes Putin a particularly important figure in this scheme is that everything took place on his territory and with his involvement. He was not just an advisor on paper, let me remind you, he headed the mayor's office committee for external relations. He signed off on the documents. All major joint ventures, including those used for drug trafficking, were processed through his department.
Former FSB officer Alexander Litvinenko spoke about the connections between Russian officials and international drug networks. He named names. A few years later, he was poisoned with polonium in London.
Huge quantities of drugs, including heroin by the ton, are coming out of Afghanistan from General Abdul Rashid Dostum. They transit through Russia to the port of St. Petersburg, and from the St. Petersburg port, they go to Spain, where they are packaged, then distributed throughout Spain and the rest of Europe.
The year 2016, a new outbreak. Almost 400 kilograms of cocaine are discovered at the Russian embassy in Argentina. Diplomatic mail, once again, an international trail.
On the grounds of the Russian embassy, or more precisely, in the school attached to it, the Argentine police found 12 suitcases containing 389 kilograms of cocaine. These were not random suitcases. This was a carefully packed shipment, ready for dispatch, hidden in a zone with extraterritorial status, which means it was outside the jurisdiction of the Argentine police.
All of this is part of the same puzzle. The schemes that began to take shape in the 90s never disappeared. They became part of the vertical power structure. And the person whose signature appeared on many of the permits from those years eventually became president.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling you the truth about this war. Click the link in the description and become our sponsor. Together to victory. Also, hit the like button if you haven't already, it really helps the channel grow. While Russia plays peace, it prepares for war elsewhere. Ukrainian military intelligence warns Finland might be next. A new Russian military district, the Leningrad district, is being built. It's not for defense, it's for offense. Quote from Ukraine's foreign intelligence chief Oleg Ivashenko. They expand military infrastructure near Finland. This is a potential direction of attack. These words were also echoed by the US President Representative Keith Kellogg.
The Russians are actually building up forces on their border. Now, they've got the longest border, Finland does, with Russia, and they obviously have concerns as well, and they should.
So now Finland is feeling threatened.
Yeah, they do. And they've got a really great president, Alex Stubb, and he's talked to the president as well. And I mean, you throw out there, just like, be very, very cautious about when you say things about expansion, because to me, the reason I believe the United States needs to stay involved is because of escalation.
Now, here's a story that should make your hair stand on end. Highly classified Russian documents about nuclear facilities have leaked online. Where they located, how many warheads, how they are maintained. You'll see it all in our next report.
More than 2 million documents related to large-scale upgrades of Russian military units with nuclear weapons. These unique materials ended up in the hands of journalists from the Danish investigative project Danwatch and the German publication Der Spiegel. Despite the fact that in 2020 Moscow classified tenders and the Ministry of Defense created a new database for military procurements, officials from the military construction company continue to regularly leak classified information online. There are a total of 11 nuclear weapons storage facilities on the territory of the Russian Federation.
Have you ever been to the city of Yasny in the Orenburg region? Do you know what it's famous for? Let me show you. Look, right there where the fence is. Behind the fence is the closed settlement of Komarovsky. And inside it is the 13th Missile Division of the Strategic Missile Forces. Nuclear missiles like the Satan and Sarmat are all strategically located here.
In this small town on the border with Kazakhstan is one of the most important bases for the strategic missile forces. Here is the base of the 621st Missile Regiment, with nuclear warheads stored in underground silos. 17 kilometers from it is the base of the 368th Regiment. These facilities are positioned in such a way that it would be impossible to destroy them all with a single nuclear bomb. These units are equipped with the Avangard hypersonic nuclear complex. In November 2022, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported the loading of the missile complex into the silo launcher.
The infrastructure of the positional area has been prepared for another missile regiment to be put on combat duty. In addition to the actual facilities of the combat launch complex, it includes areas for preparing duty shifts, carrying out combat duty, and resting personnel.
Over the past decade, as documents show, the Russians have modernized most of their nuclear facilities. Some military units were practically leveled to the ground and rebuilt from scratch. Hundreds of new barracks, watchtowers, command centers, and storage buildings have appeared. And underground, there are kilometers of tunnels. This is what Yasny looked like just 8 years ago. Today, this video is already very outdated.
Where you previously used to see only a small buried missile silo and a few rather unattractive buildings, all surrounded by flimsy fences, the bases now look completely different. They have been significantly expanded, and a wide security zone with 3 layers of electric fencing has been dug around the bases. Extensive electronic surveillance and defense systems have been installed, including remotely operated machine guns, automatic grenade launchers, and modern air defense systems.
Thousands of tons of steel, sand, cement, and bricks were used for the modernization. The materials were purchased abroad. Investigators note that, for the most part, Russians entrusted their money to the German company Nauf. The leaked data also reveals which IT systems, electrical equipment, water supply, heating, and ventilation have been installed at the country's most secret facilities. But that's not all. For the first time, the internal layouts of these facilities, down to the smallest details, have become public knowledge and consequently accessible to intelligence agencies around the world.
Where soldiers eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. It also specifies where they relax, which exercise equipment they use, primarily treadmills and dumbbells, what games they play to pass the time, chess and checkers, and what signs hang on the walls, stop, turn around, restricted area or military nest, or shoe care rules. They describe which basement rooms contain protective suits and where the weapon cabinets are located. There is also a detailed account of where the control rooms are and which buildings are connected to each other by underground tunnels.
The activity, and now I believe that this is an interesting and rather detailed investigation for the public, which talks about some strategic nuclear sites in Russia where the country's strategic nuclear potential is located. I think that Western intelligence agencies most likely already knew most of this information. Nevertheless, the publication of highly classified information on the internet is a huge embarrassment for the Kremlin, for Putin, and for the entire top military leadership of the country. I mean, they were made to look quite foolish and ridiculous.
The Kremlin did not respond in any way to such a slap in the face. All inquiries from journalists were left unanswered by the Russians. And judging by Moscow's information policy, it is unlikely that they will draw any attention to what happened at all. But whoever ends up facing the wrath of Putin and the FSB for allowing secret data to become public knowledge will not be envied. Perhaps soon there will be one more heart attack among the top officials.
Warning, after watching this report, Google might recommend atomic tourism in Russia. Don't click it. Here is my take. Russia will stop threatening the world only when it's stopped firmly, here and now. A regime held together by violence, corruption and lies has no right to set the global agenda. That's it for today. Thank you for staying with us. We read your comments, we feel your support, and we stand with our defenders. Glory to Ukraine! Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Ukraine Today.